a lot of folks have been reading what we've written and have been emailing us. I know that you have heard a time or two from a few folks. So if we could, and if you got 10, 12 minutes, I don't know if you do, I hope you do, we'd like to just kind of,
absolutely.
I remember when Trump won 4 years ago, our assessment was that you were kind of lukewarmish at that time. Is that a fair comment based on what the unknowns of Trump and some of how he acted? How would you describe your initial reaction to him? Because I think it changed over time too, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there was any secret. Mr. Trump was not my first choice as a candidate. If you remember, there were like 14 or 15.
Yeah, no kidding.
A
phone book worth. There was a phone book worth.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. He became our nominee and won the election, and I was all in. And I got to tell you, over the last 4 years, we've accomplished a lot in this country under Mr. Trump's leadership. I've worked really well with every agency I interacted with the president himself. I'm just very proud about the progress that we've made over these last 4 years. And I was excited about the possibility of having another 4 years to continue achieving so many great things for this country. I was even, as you probably know, the co-chair of his reelection campaign for the state of Washington. So I was all in, and unfortunate that we just could not get it done.
Well, okay, and I think that's I guess what I'm trying to do here, Dan, is I want the audience to get the touchstones about where you really were so that they can have that as context for ultimately getting to your vote. So the fact that you were going to be, that you were working on his behalf in the state, that's an important thing to know, because it does say that, hey, look, I haven't been harboring bad feelings, and I just was looking for an opportunity to go sideways. And I think some people think that, Dan, and that's why it's important for us to lay this path out.
Well, I appreciate you establishing that base, because that is not the case at all. Like I said, the amount of progress that we've been able to garner under President Trump's leadership is unsurpassed. We truly took great strides in lighting this economy we have on fire. Pre-pandemic, you recall all the numbers that were just turning in our favor. I mean, had the COVID-19 not reared its ugly head, oh my God, I think Mr. Trump would have won in a landslide. We were just on the road to just success across the board, and so it's really here we have a Biden administration.
Lost the phone.
All they can to tear down all that progress.
It's got to be frustrating to be there and see the undoing of that which did generate such, not just, not progress from a numbers point of view, but progress from a lot of Americans' sense of satisfaction, well-being, confidence. All of that stuff was on the rise. Okay, so
absolutely
every step along the way, the left is trying to pull him down and challenge everything that he's doing. And he's tweeting out, and he's the master of the tweet and all of that. And he's saying a lot of things that people that ultimately, I was a never Hillary guy to begin with. I wasn't a pro-Trump guy, but you can't deny the progress and the success. And you can't deny the positive message about America, make America great again, America first. A lot of us like that. And so when you decided to join in the Texas lawsuit, or at least add your name to that, a lot of people thought, all right, representing, Congressman Newhouse. What was your thought in doing that? Did you have concerns about the fairness of the election? Did you just want, or did you just want for those who had those questions to have a chance to have it looked at?
So, as you know, there were numerous reports coming out of several states about some, how should we call them, irregularities or processes that were questionable. And as in any election, I've been through several of them myself. So have you, Dave. a candidate has available to them options or a process if they feel that there are questions that need to be answered about how an election was conducted. President Trump certainly had those questions and wanted to raise them in courts across the land. The state of Texas, on behalf of their constituents, and not wanting their votes to be compromised in any way, brought forth this lawsuit. And I've gotten a lot of criticism about signing that amicus brief, just so you know. But in our country, when we have a question of whether or not something is lawful, when there is controversy about a process or a procedure that wasn't followed correctly, we turn to the courts. We were asking the Supreme Court to please help us look at this question, help us decide if these states did in fact follow the law. As you know, the outcome of that, the Supreme Court did not hear the case. They didn't dismiss it on its merits, only on the standing of the state of Texas. And so we were left with the question. And that's why I signed the amicus brief, because I think that's the proper way to do things. If we have a question about something like that, ask the court to help us decide it.
All right, but it's been called the big lie, as you know, and you can hear that repeated 50 times a day on some networks and channels. What is your personal feeling? I mean, I get you supporting a process that's legitimately and legal the way to go. Good on you. That's what we would expect. What was your personal take?
As to the
question of whether there was, if not outright, theft of the election, right, enough. How do I say this? Did you support it because it's the process, or because you believed that the process was necessary to get to the truth?
I supported it because I felt that there were questions that came up that needed to be answered, and I couldn't answer them. I don't have the assets available to me to go to Pennsylvania or go to Wisconsin and to figure that out.
All right. So as we sit right now, you can't say with 100% certainty that the election wasn't stolen, or can you?
Well, what I can say, Dave, and I think that this is really important for people to understand. So a couple things happened since that amicus brief, right? Those states, all 50 states and the District of Columbia, held their electoral college votes. I think that was on December 13th or 14th, something like that. Every single state came up with only one slate of electoral votes that they sent to us in Congress.
Right.
Right? And so after the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to hear this case, the states sent us those votes. And then the second thing, every state legislature has the responsibility or the
constitutional authorization, right?
Right, and one of those things that they have the ability to do is say essentially, hey, Congress, we think we have a problem here. We don't know which slate of electoral votes are the right ones, so we're going to send you two, for instance. And that has happened in our history. In this particular case, or this year, I mean, no state did that. Every single state, all 50 states and the District of Columbia, only sent us one. So from that, we have to assume that by not taking action, they in fact do act and say our results are legitimate. That's, we cannot, as a Congress, say, sorry, State X, we don't think that you did it right. We think the vote should have gone the other way, so we're going to override what you decided. How would people in the state of Washington feel if now, like today, we have total Democrat control in Washington, D.C., and if they turned to the state of Washington and said, sorry, we think that your votes for candidate X should have actually gone to candidate Y, and we're going to overrule you. We don't want Congress to have that power. I think people think about that.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a horrific situation to put ourselves in. But here's the thing: some people, Jim Jordan, others have said, some states abdicated. They gave the role to the governor to certify. They gave the role to the secretaries of state and abdicated their duty. And since it's constitutionally directed to them, that should be challenged. But if they are Democrats and they're not challenging that, then isn't there a role for Congress to play in saying, time out, you guys, you're violating the Constitution and you're doing it willingly and knowingly because Democrats are in charge, so Supreme Court, help us out, right? Isn't that?
So my reading of the Constitution tells me that by their action, or in this case, by the state legislatures' inaction, by not saying, hey, Congress, we have a problem here, help us, that, in fact, is a decision that they are making. And so that tells me then that Pennsylvania's legislature says, yeah, we're okay with the Secretary of State making these unilateral decisions. So it's a legal argument to make, obviously, on both sides. But that's my reading of the Constitution truly limits our ability as Congress. Now, I think going forward, and I'm already behind several efforts to make reforms in how our voting processes work. So there's more uniformity in as much as we can possibly. It's a state's duty and responsibility to conduct these national elections, but we want to make sure that, in as much as we can, make sure that they're uniform across the country. But like I said, the Constitution is pretty clear, and that's why. With all those things happen, I did vote to receive and did not object to the electoral votes from the states.
So the interpretation of folks that don't necessarily have all the information see it like this. Hey, this isn't right. The Constitution says you're supposed to do it. Somebody needs to step in. Are you telling me that the Constitution allows for violations of it to get away and there's nobody that can intervene? And I guess what you're saying is, yeah, nobody can intervene. Right. If the legislature didn't take action, that's the prescribed part of it. And sorry about that if you live in that state and your legislature stabs you in the back. That's just the way it's got to be.
You know what I think, Dave and Lance? I think that truly, and not that because they're not here to defend themselves, I think truly the U.S. Supreme Court dropped the ball on this.
Sure they did.
This was a key question that needed to be answered. Yeah. They could have been very helpful if they had weighed in on this. They did not. And so we were left to, like I said, what I interpret the Constitution to tell us, the powers that are available to the Congress if the state legislature does not take affirmative action in the other direction.
Okay. So if you're true to the Constitution, then what does your reading of the Constitution say about impeaching a president after he's out of office?
That's from what I've been able to determine that's still an option open. I know there's legal scholars on either side, but you got to remember that at the time of the vote that I took, he was still our president, and so that was not a determining factor in my decision.
All right. Well, let's. What everybody wants to hear, Congressman, is what were the determining factors in your decision? How? I mean, the riot was on the 6th. You guys did your vote, on the 13th? In between, I'm assuming you heard for some people when they were talking about impeachment. Yeah. You had to have been. I'm guessing. You tell us. Were you bombarded with people giving you advice on which way to go?
Not nearly as much as you would think. I've had a lot more input on much lesser important issues. Certainly some people reached out, but not to the degree you would have expected.
Okay.
But I know my district, Dave and Lance. I was born in the 15th legislative district of the state. I'm born in the 4th district. I've represented this district for now 3 full terms. I know the people in my district. I knew there would be tremendous pushback on a decision to impeach our president, someone who we just talked about. We've appreciated all the work he's done and been able to work with him with all the accomplishments that we've had.
Dan,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Excuse me? So if you give me the time to do this, I'd be happy to explain the whole thing. And
Yes,
I don't know
you
how
bet.
many minutes we've got. But
We've
bet.
got all the time necessary
good.
because it's really it's probably the biggest single thing we've seen here in terms of response and reaction. And I so want you to have your full opportunity. You got thousands of KIT listeners, your voters out there tuned in right now.
Yep.
And so here's your chance to speak to them directly. How did you get to the conclusion that you needed to vote to impeach?
And I appreciate the opportunity to do that, guys. I really do, because this is important. This is the most important vote I've ever made in my political career, and probably will be number one until I'm done. It all began on November 6th, right? With the outcome of the election, the president challenging the results, leading up to the rally and the day the Capitol became under siege on January 6th. At the president's behest, a lot of people came to Washington, D.C. Tens of thousands showed up, for good reasons. And I got to tell you, I know there were people from Central Washington, good people with it. I saw them firsthand. A lot of these people were just like you and me, just like our neighbors in Central Washington. Good. I bet you 90+% of the people were there for the right reasons to express their opinion. And I think express their frustration that they're not being listened to. They're not being heard by Congress. And so that's their First Amendment right, and I totally support them coming and doing that. The president came. They had the rally. He gave a very motivational speech. I tell you what, I wish I had the gift that President Trump has to speak to people. Unfortunately, I don't. But
few do. He's one of a kind in that regard. That's for sure.
He really is. And what I've been saying all along, all politicians try to motivate people through their speeches. I read his speech at least 3 times. I listened to it numerous times, trying to discern, okay, did the president incite this mob? And if you look at the words, I got to tell you, I don't see that. He was very motivational if you listen to it, but reading it, you don't see it. And so, but the one thing that I do criticize the president for in his speech and leading up to it was the information that was being given by him and others as to the perceived fact that Congress or the vice president could unilaterally just change the outcome of the election. I mean, he said it several times that day. That's not the case. That was not true. And so I am critical about that.
Let me interject something right here, because people were suggesting that everything that I read that comes out of the left side, people were there to change the outcome of the election. And if you listen to Cruz and Hawley and others, they were looking for this: take a break, form a commission, examine the issues that you wanted examined when you signed on to the Texas case, basically saying, let's do that, and then 75 million Americans will kick open the door and we'll see or we won't see and we'll move on. And that's what the purpose was, not the president may be saying one thing, but the Congress wasn't. I don't believe the Congress folks were there to overturn as much as they wanted the full examination that they've been trying to get, and they hadn't been heard all along.
Yeah. So there was frustration because of that as well, right?
Right.
So let me just move on to the aftermath of the rally. Obviously, some people were motivated to make their voice heard and wanted to come to the Capitol building to do that. Like I said, that's great. Others got caught up in the moment and overreacted. And I think some, and this is something that is coming out in FBI investigations, some came with the full intent of causing more than just making their voices heard. And that's becoming clearer every day. And I'm not sure that I don't know who those people are, to tell you the truth, that they're not normal, Trump supporters that I'm aware.
But is he responsible for their actions? That's the question. And I know you're heading there, so I'll let you get there. But I just want to throw this in. Back at time of Charlottesville, and the whole that's the whole reason that Biden got in the election, and Trump said good people on both sides. Those bad people showed up to do bad things without him tweeting. The same kind of bad guys came up to do bad actions, and they were not motivated by the president. His tweets and all of that didn't happen. So if it could happen one time, why does he have to take the responsibility this time? Go ahead.
So I'm getting to that, Dave, and I appreciate that interjection. So fast forward to the Capitol's under siege, right? The protesters who now, a small percentage of this larger group has turned into a mob. And I don't think there's any argument about that.
No, sir.
This mob who has weapons of all kinds, bear gas, clubs and guns and knives, all kinds of things. It was a scary thing. I was there witnessing this. I was in the Capitol when this happened. They break through. They're fighting with the Capitol Police. They overrun the Capitol Police. They're causing all kinds of damage throughout the building. And this is just the building, right? But it is the center of our government. It's a symbol of what our government stands for. As they come through the building, some of them come to the doors of the Senate chamber, where the Senate has gone. They separated from the House. We were in joint session. They've gone to their own chamber to debate the votes from Arizona. That's what was going on.
Right.
Vice President Pence was there in his official duty as president of the Senate. He even had some members of his family with him. As the protesters, the mob, are trying to crash through those doors, the Secret Service whisks him, his family, and whatever senators are still on the floor away to places somewhere within the Capitol for their safety. Within minutes of that, the president tweets out that it's a long tweet, so I can't remember all of it, but essentially he says, Mike Pence is a coward, and he's not doing what he needs to do to stand up for our nation. And we can get the direct quote of that tweet if you'd like. Moments after that tweet went out, the crowd starts chanting, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. They had actually constructed a gallows on the grounds of the Capitol, complete with a noose. And I've told people before that I don't know what was in their minds and their hearts at that time, if they were actually going to hang Mike Pence or if this was just for drama and full effect of what they were trying to make a point. But nobody knew that they were going to crash through the security of the Capitol Police and break into the Capitol and cause all this damage at that point. So everything's on the table. So people were truly fearful for their lives. While this is all happening, and it's clear that the Capitol Police have been totally overrun. It's a free-for-all in the Capitol. People are hunkered down and trying to be safe, locked into rooms, told not to come out for any reason. And during that day, several people were killed. The president and I guess I was one of them. Everybody I know was trying to get in touch with the president or somebody around him at the White House to plead with him to send reinforcements. The Capitol was under attack. A branch of government was trying to carry out its constitutional duties, was truly under siege, and they needed help. Lives are at stake. I myself, just so you guys know, I've got a very good working relationship with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. I was trying to get in touch with Jared and ask him to please have your father-in-law send the National Guard. We need help. The president, for some reason, did not do that. He did not respond. It ended up, the Army has told us this, that Mike Pence, the vice president, who is hunkered down in some unknown location in the Capitol, had to make that call in order to get reinforcements to the Capitol. So it's no one single thing here. there's a whole complex situation, a dynamic happening this day. But I think at that particular time, on the failure of the part of the president to come to the defense of the U.S. Capitol and the legislative branch trying to accomplish their constitutional duty, at that point, I felt that the president broke his oath that he took, just like I took, to defend the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic. We literally had a domestic enemy at the front door of the Capitol. And I got to tell you guys, this decision to impeach our president, who like I said, I've worked with and I've admired, and I'm just looking forward to another 4 years of doing great things with. I hope you understand how difficult of a decision that was. But I felt if I voted no on impeachment, that I would have been not only condoning the violence at the Capitol, which, guys, in our country, that's not how we do things. But I also would have been condoning the president's actions and inactions when I truly felt in my heart that he failed to provide the leadership that was necessary by the commander-in-chief. And like I said, it pains me to say this, that he, at that point, broke his oath of office.
There is a timeline. Dan, I appreciate
it.
You're going to get a chance to talk a little more here. Timeline,
okay.
There are a number of them out there. One says at 2:24 p.m., he tweets, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what needed to be done, blah, blah.
There you go.
All right, so, but 14 minutes later, he tweets out, support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They're truly on our side of our country. Stay peaceful. 14 minutes later, and then at 3:13, which would have been another 40 minutes later, roughly, he tweets out, I'm asking everyone to remain peaceful at the Capitol. No violence. We're the party of law and order. Respect law and our great men and women. And then, at 4:02, Biden says, do something. And within 10 minutes, the president sends out his everybody go home video tweet. Now, the tweet is the most powerful thing that he has. I don't know if people were monitoring that at that point, but, 80 million followers. So he's tweeting out to stay peaceful, to go home, short of coming down there himself, which would have been a security nightmare. What is it that what could have he done differently that would have changed your mind? Call for the guard? I mean, is that the biggest thing that you're concerned with?
That's a big part of it. Absolutely. I think he truly failed in his responsibility to, like I said, defend the Constitution, defend our government from the threats of enemies, both foreign and domestic.
Did you feel like
the tweets you're describing? I think there's more to them than that. That they weren't as timely as they could have been, as immediate as they could have. They weren't as strong, and the failure to call in reinforcements, I think, certainly is a true failure on his part.
Okay, but the article of impeachment is for inciting insurrection. Okay, that's what the actual article was.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
marched over like the
Right.
impeachment?
I saw that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so so you're saying then that you believe that those people acted because of what he said, did, and didn't do, and yet you said we're learning more and more about him as we go here.
Mm-hmm.
This was pre-planned. This took place. You don't show up and say, somebody find me a noose, somebody find me a scaffolding. I mean, that stuff.
No, you're right.
All of that was.
I agree with you, Dave.
Okay, but if it was pre-planned, how did he incite it that day?
Yeah, how did his words inspire the people to do it then?
So you're right. That's the wording of the articles of impeachment. And I think, I hope you heard my remarks on the House floor. The articles were not well written, and I didn't agree with everything in them.
Oh, you said it was a flawed process, but you can't let that get in the way. something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yes. Because of but I don't, like I said, tried to qualify before. I don't know that he incited the riot. I'm not saying that. Certainly, he led some people to believe some things that I think were incorrect. But did he go out and tell them to break down the doors and kill people? No, he did not do that. And there's another part of the article that I disagree with too. I don't think precluding the president from running for office again is something that should be included in that. So they were imperfect articles of impeachment. But this was the only question that I had before me. I didn't have the luxury of saying, "Hey, Nancy Pelosi, let's rewrite this and just make it what I want it to say." But there is language in the articles that I thought told me that if the president, through his actions, did in fact break his oath of office, that then was an impeachable offense. And like I said, reluctantly, I came to that conclusion. I think it was the right conclusion. I think that he could have done so much more to protect another branch of government as it was carrying out its official duties, and he did not.
Well, I don't want to throw your friend under the bus here. We talked with Bruce Chandler the other day, and he was very supportive of your courage to act on your convictions and your conscience. He qualified it to say, I don't know if I would have done that, but I have a lot of respect for Dan, and I know you guys have been lifelong friends. But he also hinted at the prospect that you had information that the rest of us don't know, and that some of that might have been guiding your decision. Is he accurate in that? Is there anything more you can say about that, or was that just his way?
Well, I hope that people now understand what the seriousness of what was happening that day, and the distinction of whether the president incited this or not, which I've already talked about my feelings about that. The fact of the matter is whether this group of people came, and I think they did, with intentions to cause chaos. The fact of the matter is they were there. They were breaking in. They overtook the Capitol and were hunting members of Congress. It doesn't matter who incited the come at that point. The fact of the matter is they're there.
That doesn't resonate, Dan, with so many of us who watched it. We don't get that sense of hunting. In fact, we see the footage of the Buffalo Head guy as he first walks in, and he's talking to the guard there, and they're kind of chit-chatting and stuff. I don't think anybody on the outside can truly appreciate the fear that was generated and just how chaotic it must have been, because I don't know that the people who are...
Well, let me tell you, Dave, it truly was, though. I saw firsthand some of it, but like you, I've probably watched most of it on television because I was told to hunker down and lock the door and don't come out for any reason. Some of the footage that I've witnessed to, oh my God, these people were totally out of control, and whatever selective footage that they're showing on television, I can't speak to that, but it truly, people don't show up to a political rally with weapons like these people did. They intended to do something beyond anything just to make a political statement. There was much more than that. And like I told you at the onset, 90+% of the people at that rally were good, solid Americans, good Christian people that would not participate in something like this. So there was way more going on with this than met the eye at the time. And they truly were. They were hunting members of Congress. They truly were, and the vice president.
Did you feel like your life was in danger?
I'll tell you what, Lance. My office was evacuated because there was a pipe bomb near the office building.
Oh.
It was reported. We get these threats all the time. They actually found one.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pictures.
So we couldn't go back to our office until I think 7 or 8 o'clock that evening. Absolutely, I'll tell you what, I had left the House floor just minutes before they broke into the hallways of the Capitol surrounding the House chamber. I walked through the doorway where the one person was shot and killed just minutes before that happened. Members of Congress were told to get down behind the seats because they were breaking the windows of the House chamber doors trying to get in. If it were not for the bravery of many of the Capitol Police, they would have. And people were killed. One of the Capitol policemen was, I don't know if you've seen footage of this, Dave, but this is really concerning. One of the Capitol policemen was killed with a fire extinguisher that was used to hit him over the head. So this was absolutely, all of us were rightfully concerned about our well-being that day. And not just for us, but for our staffs and all the people that were around the buildings those days. It was like, usually you see something like this happen in a third world country. This was in our own U.S. Capitol that's going on. It's truly an incredible, horrible experience. Now, having said all that, I did not let emotion take over when I made the decision to do what I did. And you were looking at the articles of impeachment. If I could, I'd read part of it to you as well.
Sure.
In all this, President Trump gravely endangered the security of the United States and its institutions of government. He threatened the integrity of the democratic system, interfered with the peaceful transition of power, and imperiled a co-equal branch of government. He thereby betrayed his trust as president to the.
Well, some of us would, but some of us would disagree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, if the procedure is to be able to challenge, and certainly we know that it is, and certainly we've seen Democrats lead those challenges many times. Then the process of saying, push this as far as you can. The question has never been answered. You yourself said the Supreme Court dropped the ball. The question hasn't been answered. It still isn't answered. And while the left wants to call it the big lie, there's half the country that thinks there's truth to the big lie. And so the president saying push this as far as you can within our legal rights here doesn't make him throwing the nation under the bus. And if a few crazies on the outside jump in and act crazy like they have before he really ever was in charge of anything, I don't know how you can get to he's the cause of this, and therefore I'm given go ahead. We want to hear from you, not me.
Yeah. So let me be clear then, if I wasn't already. I did not say he incited this, but the fact that it happened.
Well, but it's like
he stood by.
You're punishing.
He essentially stood by and watched it happen.
You're punishing him for something that he didn't have direct control over, nor do we know he could have stopped it any sooner. I mean, a more strongly worded tweet would have done what? Him coming down there would have done what? So I guess what I'm saying is, I believe you reached your conclusions the way you did. I don't know that you're convincing anybody who's listening, Dan, to be honest with you, that those were the right calculations to make under those circumstances. That's all.
We were under attack by a domestic group of terrorists. Over 2,000, from accounts I've heard, were storming the Capitol, fighting with the Capitol Police, overrun the security in the building, and had broken inside and were literally hunting members of Congress. And the president did not take the definitive action necessary to defend the Capitol from this onslaught. And I don't know about you, but I could not vote the other way and condone not only the violence, which no, you're right. President Trump was not there breaking windows, but he had a responsibility to come to the defense of the Capitol at that time.
Well, 200 other Republicans saw the same stuff, and they reached a different conclusion.
Yeah.
And
I,
that,
I understand that. I know I'm in the minority in my conference on
well,
this. I totally understand that.
but how much in the minority are you in your conference if they award you the assistant whip position or whatever? It's like, wait a second, I thought that you might have a price to pay back there, but it doesn't look like it. That's a whole separate issue. I guess part of the point is we are now, all of us regular Americans that you just described, our neighbors here in Central Washington, we are seen as domestic terrorists for supporting Trump. And people who are disappointed with you are saying that you aided and abetted in that by being willing to ask for the impeachment, and kind of it points back to all of us who supported Trump are cut from the same cloth. And believe me, that is the message that the mainstream media is putting out on a daily basis.
I disagree. Well, I disagree with that premise because I'm one of those too, and I totally disagree with that. For all the reasons I've stated, the positive things that we've been able to do with this president and the potential for way more that we could have accomplished. So, that's, you can say what you want.
I hear you. There's no question about that, Dan. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
That's the past. And what I'm saying is this sets up the future. We've got Biden in the presidency now. And now, you want to know what's happening? The left is hunting the rest of us. That's what's happening now in the minds of the people out there that are concerned about this vote, because they are coming after to cancel and to put an entirely, not just a different agenda from the president, but what will be a negative and costly in America crushing agenda on us. And anybody now that was pro-Trump is going to be the ones being hunted. All right, we're going to wrap this up. I want you to have the last word, Dan Newhouse. I so appreciate us having this opportunity to talk with you.
Yeah.
Our people have been hounding us to try to get a hold of you. You're here. We've been on the air now for 45 minutes or so. I want you to have the last word. So, Dan, with much respect and appreciation, because we always have liked you too, I want you to have the last word. So take her away.
Well, I appreciate that, Dave and Lance, and thanks for going overtime. I mean, this is unprecedented for you guys. I know you have commercial breaks and news and all that stuff. I really appreciate allowing us time to talk about this.
You're welcome.
I think, a couple things. I want people to know that this was not a knee-jerk reaction to the situation. This was a prayerful, thoughtful decision that I made that I struggled with. I got to be honest with you. I truly did. I knew that there would be a huge pushback at home if I voted to impeach our president. I knew that. You can say a lot of things about me, but I don't think you would say I'm naive or stupid. At least I would hope. So I knew the realities of. I know my district well. So this was a tough choice. But like I said, for the reasons that I've given, I felt if I voted no, that I would have been condoning not only the action but the inaction of certainly of the mob that was there, but of the president that day. And I want people to know this too, Dave. I was born and raised in the Yakima Valley. I've been a lifelong conservative, a lifelong Republican, and that's not changed. That has not changed one iota. I will continue to fight as hard as I can, stand up for those things that we think are important in our country, and resist the tremendous effort that's being put forward by this current president, President Biden, to undo all of the things that we were able to accomplish under President Trump. We have got a huge struggle on our hands over the next 4 years, as you know. And it's going to take every single one of us to be pushing as hard as we can to make sure that we continue to enjoy the freedoms in this country that we have and resist the progressive movement that is taking hold in the United States of America. That cannot be, and the future of our country is too important for us to sit on the sidelines and let that happen. So I am committed to being in that fight, leading that fight. I just want the people of the 4th District to know that.
Congressman Dan Newhouse, we appreciate your time, sir. And
Thank you, Congressman.
I know a lot of folks are going to have more to say on this. I might, not that you need to hear, read, or see more, but if you check out the KIT website, we're getting hundreds of comments, and you maybe know some of the names, maybe you don't. But again,
well, Dave, Lance, I can't tell you that I'm expecting to change a lot of people's minds. I get that. But I just want them to understand where I was coming from.
Absolutely,
this was not a decision made lightly. I'm thoughtful to a fault. I agonize over some things too much, and this was a huge decision. But I got to tell you, the way I was brought up, and my parents were very put a lot of. Guided me very well throughout my childhood and my Christian upbringing, and I just felt that this was something that I was the right thing. This was the right thing to do. And people in the 4th District, they didn't send me to Washington D.C. to do the easy thing or what's popular at the time thing. I think they sent me there to take hard votes, and this was a hard vote, and this was to me a moral vote to stand up for the Constitution of our United States. That oath I took, I take very, very seriously. And, bottom line is I've got to look at myself in the mirror and be comfortable with the decision I made. And I appreciate you guys giving me such a long time this morning to talk about it.